What if everything you think you know about power is wrong? What if the rules you've been following were never the real rules at all? These questions might unsettle you, and that's the point. Because when it comes to power, most of us are sleepwalking, convinced we're in control while missing the hidden forces shaping our lives. Today, we're diving into the forbidden lessons of Niccolo Machiavelli, the man who stripped away the fairy tales and revealed how power really works. Machiavelli's core idea is simple but uncomfortable. Power isn't about being good or bad, it's about being effective. He famously said, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." This isn't about cruelty, it's about understanding human nature. People respond to strength, predictability, and consequences. You probably recognize that stubborn feeling of being right, even when the evidence starts to stack against you. We all do it. We cling to ideals like fairness or karma, assuming the world rewards virtue. But Machiavelli asks, does it really? Think back to when you first realized a childhood belief wasn't true. Maybe Santa Claus, or the idea that hard work always pays off. That moment of disillusionment is jarring, but it's also the beginning of real understanding. Machiavelli's insights force us into that same uncomfortable space. He doesn't care about how things should be. He cares about how they are. And that's where most of us resist. We want to believe in a just world where good deeds are rewarded and bad ones punished. But Machiavelli whispers the quiet part aloud. Power often goes to those who are willing to do what others won't. Here's the tension. Our instincts scream that morality and success should go hand in hand. We're wired for fairness. It's how societies hold together. But beneath that, there's a deeper awareness, one we often ignore. You felt it. That nagging sense when someone climbs the ladder not by merit, but by playing the game. Or the time you bit your tongue instead of speaking up because you knew the truth wouldn't be rewarded. Machiavelli didn't invent these rules. He just pointed them out. And that's why his work still stings centuries later. Many of us cling to familiar ideas because they're safe. Admitting that power operates differently feels cynical, even dangerous. But what if it's not about becoming ruthless? What if it's about seeing clearly? Imagine two people, one who believes the world is fair and one who understands the real levers of influence. Who's more likely to navigate life without constant frustration? Machiavelli's answer is obvious. This isn't about abandoning your morals. It's about recognizing that power has its own logic, one that doesn't care about your feelings. Think of the last time you were surprised by someone's rise to the top. Were they really the most skilled, or did they understand something others didn't? Machiavelli would say it's the latter. Success often goes to those who grasp how people really behave, not how we wish they would. So, where does that leave us? It's easy to feel disillusioned, even angry. But Machiavelli's real lesson isn't despair, it's empowerment. When you see the game for what it is, you can play it with intention. You don't have to become manipulative, but you can stop being naive. You can spot when someone is using fear instead of love to control outcomes. You can recognize when loyalty is a tool, not a virtue. And most importantly, you can decide how much of the game you want to play. This cracks open a new way of seeing power, not as something distant or abstract, but as a force woven into the everyday choices we make. At first, it all seems simple. We start with clear-cut ideas about right and wrong, assuming that good intentions always lead to good outcomes. We believe fairness wins, honesty is rewarded, and people generally act in predictable ways. This is where we begin, in a world where the rules feel straightforward, and the path to success seems linear. We trust that if we work hard and play by the rules, things will fall into place. It's comforting, but it's also a little naive. Then comes the confusing middle, where nothing adds up the way we thought it would. This is the phase where Machiavelli's lessons start to sting. We see people who cut corners get ahead, while those who stick to their principles struggle. We witness kindness being mistaken for weakness, and cunning being praised as cleverness. It's disorienting. You might be someone who resists change at first, clinging to the idea that the world should operate the way you were taught. But the harder you hold on, the more the contradictions pile up. Machiavelli understood this phase well. He saw it as the moment when idealism collides with reality, and the collision is rarely pretty. Challenges don't come with clear solutions. They come with trade-offs. Do you prioritize being loved or being feared? Do you act decisively or wait for consensus? The middle phase forces us to confront these questions, and most of us feel uneasy during transitions like this. Yet, slowly, a new clarity emerges. You may catch yourself pausing before reacting lately, weighing the consequences of your actions, rather than relying on instinct. This is where Machiavelli's contrast between knee-jerk reactions and thoughtful responses becomes vital. The impulsive person sees a threat and lashes out. The strategic one asks what the threat reveals about the bigger picture. We start noticing that power isn't about brute force or manipulation. It's about understanding the hidden currents beneath the surface. Everyday life becomes a series of small experiments. You test when to speak up and when to stay quiet, when to push and when to yield. The rules aren't black and white anymore, but they're not entirely grey either. They're dynamic, shifting with context. Machiavelli's view of challenges wasn't about avoiding them, but navigating them with eyes wide open. He knew the middle phase was where most people faltered, because it demands letting go of old assumptions. It's uncomfortable to admit that the world doesn't reward purity of heart alone. But through this discomfort, we begin to see power for what it really is. A tool, neither good nor bad in itself, but defined by how it's used. We realize that the people who thrive aren't the ones who ignore the complexities, but the ones who learn to move through them with intention. This journey, from simplicity through confusion to clarity, isn't just about power. It's about growing up. It's about recognizing that the world is messier than we hoped, but more manageable than we feared. You might still wrestle with the tension between idealism and pragmatism, but now you do it with a sharper awareness. The lessons feel less like betrayals and more like revelations. And as we keep moving forward, we find that the toughest phases often teach us the most. Through this discomfort, we begin to see the cracks in what we once thought was solid ground. It's unsettling, like realizing the map you've been following is outdated, or the rules you've lived by no longer serve you. But here's the thing. This unease isn't a sign you're failing. It's the first step towards something new, something better. The friction you feel is the old version of yourself resisting the growth that's already happening beneath the surface. And while it might not feel like it in the moment, that resistance is a gift. It means you're paying attention. It means you're alive to the possibility of change. Think about the last time you tried to break a habit or shift a mindset. At first, it probably felt awkward, even exhausting. Your brain kept defaulting to the familiar, like a well-worn path in a forest. But with time and repetition, those new neural pathways start to form. The old frustrations that used to derail you, the traffic jam, the missed deadline, the offhand comment that stung, suddenly don't bother you as much. You'll likely find daily decisions coming easier, not because life has gotten simpler, but because you've gotten clearer. This isn't magic. It's the Barnum effect in action. When we start to see ourselves as capable of growth, we unconsciously align our actions with that belief. The mind loves a story, and once it accepts the narrative that change is possible, it begins to make that story real. There's a quiet power in realizing that much of what holds us back isn't external. It's the stories we've told ourselves about who we are and what we're capable of. Maybe you've always thought of yourself as someone who struggles with discipline, or creativity, or confidence. But what if those labels were just placeholders, waiting to be replaced by something more true? The moment you question them is the moment they start to lose their grip. It's like finally noticing the weight of a backpack you've been carrying for years and deciding to set it down. You stand a little taller, breathe a little deeper. The world feels lighter because you are. This journey isn't about becoming someone entirely new. It's about uncovering who you've been all along beneath the layers of expectation, habit, and fear. And the beautiful thing is, you don't have to do it alone. Together, we discover that growth is rarely a straight line. There are days when it feels like you're moving backward, and that's okay. Progress isn't about perfection, it's about presence. It's about showing up again and again for the messy, imperfect process of becoming. And along the way, you'll start to notice little shifts. The way you respond to challenges, the way you talk to yourself, the way you see the world. These are the signs that something deeper is changing. Many notice old frustrations don't bother them as much, not because the frustrations have disappeared, but because their relationship to them has shifted. The same things that once felt like obstacles now feel like part of the landscape, something to navigate rather than something to fear. This is the subtle magic of perspective. When we stop fighting reality and start working with it, life becomes less of a battle and more of a dance. And just like dancing, it's not about getting every step right. It's about feeling the music, trusting your body, and letting go of the need to control every moment. At the heart of all this is a simple truth. Freedom isn't something we find outside ourselves. It's something we cultivate within. Niccolo Machiavelli once described it like finally taking off shoes that never quite fit. The relief of shedding what was never meant for you. The sudden awareness of how much easier it is to move when you're no longer constrained by what doesn't serve you. That's the gift of this journey. Not just the destination, but the lightness that comes from walking your own path, on your own terms. And as you do, you'll find that the world opens up in ways you never expected. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. Together, we discover that the most profound shifts often start with the smallest steps. A single moment of clarity, a single decision to try something different, a single breath taken with intention. These are the seeds of change. And as they grow, they reshape not just how we see ourselves, but how we engage with everything around us. Life becomes less about reacting and more about creating. Less about surviving and more about thriving. And in that space, we find something unexpected. Not just freedom, but joy. The kind of joy that comes from knowing you're exactly where you're meant to be, even if the path there was anything but straight. So if you're feeling the weight of those ill-fitting shoes today, remember, you don't have to keep wearing them. The choice to step into something better, something truer, is always yours. And with each step, you're not just moving forward, you're coming home to yourself. That's the journey. That's the gift. And it's waiting for you, right here, right now. All you have to do is begin.